I will talk about tipping points. You know, tipping points maybe from the Earth system analysis. There are tipping points like in climate change, like in biodiversity, etc. So I'm not talking about this today. The tipping point is a term that comes from mathematics and physics, etc., but is used by sociologists who have adopted it to describe a critical point in a situation, process or system, I quote, beyond which a significant and often unstoppable effect or change takes place. So this is a tipping point. And I guess we are in a tipping point, not just regarding the Earth system. I apply it here to the politics and follow the hypothesis that we are at a point in Germany and in Europe where the advance of the ultra-right can either tip over into a negative trend or further advance. I think we are in a very decisive historical moment now concerning the radical right in Europe. And I would like to contextualize this current discussion about the AfD, the German party. I think you are familiar with this party. It's called Alternative für Deutsche, Alternative for Germany. And this is a right-wing party founded in the in 2013. They were active in parliaments, local parliaments, also in the European Parliament, and they have a kind of rush to 22% in the polls, and even in East Germany around 30 or even more percent. So this is what's the background of this, and I will talk about a bit about this party, and I would like to anchor it in a discussion about the cleavage theory, which is easily to be explained right now, and in reference to the upcoming elections to the European Parliament. I think this is exactly the historical moment. It's not just about Germany, it's about Europe. So we recently had a very successful collective action. Don't know if you're familiar with that. And soccer fans stopped the German Soccer League from handing themselves over to $1 billion investor by dropping tennis balls during the match and permanently interrupting the games. It's one of the most successful protest actions in Germany in recent. So we have a lot of it's kind of single issue protests, but I will not talk about this. Of course, we talk about this. I like analogies from soccer to politics, but here's something different. We are talking about a rather unexpected mass demonstrations against the AfD after a conspiration or a meeting between the AfD leaders, some AfD leaders, and well-known identitarian right-wing intellectual from Austria with rich middle-class citizens close to the CDU. That came to light. So reportage, it was an investigative reportage of a association which is called Correctiv. It corrects errors, fake news in public opinion, and they went to a certain place in Potsdam where these people met, and it was about bluntly, it was about a project of mass deportation of even German citizens or German citizens with foreign background, so-called migratory background. And it was a meeting where it was not just about that. This was the topics, how to get rid of so-called passport Germans, who are not bio-Germans. This is a difference they make. A Völkisch idea about to distinguish between those who are just assimilated, but are not really real Germans in their homeland living Germans. But the background for this was, of course, the other topics of this meeting, which are rarely discussed. It's about financial resources. It's about support from the Christian Democrats, the right wing of the Christian Democrats. It was about coalition building, and it was about sponsoring media actions, particularly fake news. AfD is particularly active in TikTok media. TikTok is the preferred medium for, let's say, people between 13 and 18 years old. And they're active in this TikTok environment, universum. And it was about creating new channels of disinformation in Germany. This was the real topic of this meeting. And there was this Martin Sellner, identitarian right-wing intellectual connected to a so-called Institut für Staatspolitik, which is like a think tank of the right-wing identitarian movement in Germany. And he gave a talk there about remigration. This is the official topic. So this is the background. And 2 days later, this happened. And it happens still. And it not just happened in Hamburg, where you have like 100,000 people. It happens in Berlin. It happens in smaller cities like Gießen, where I live. We had like 15,000 people on the street. This never happened during the last 30 years in Gießen. And it happens, and this is particularly interesting, it happens in East Germany, in cities, villages, where you have a real problem to show up as a non-follower of the AfD, because they kind of have the cultural hegemony in these places. They are those who care for people. They are those who give the tone of the public debate. And it's very courageous to go there on the street, like in places like Pirna or others in Saxonia or in Thuringia, and to show up and say, no, we are against them. And they did, and they still do. And this is what happened in Germany. And this is very, very unusual. It's not against the AfD any longer. It's for democracy. So this is not a special interest. It's a general interest demonstration, and it's hard to say how this will continue. And I will think about what's next. What are the next steps? What follows out from mass demonstrations? At some point, mass demonstrations stop. They are over. And you cannot demonstrate every day, but you have to think about follow-up actions. And we did this thing, for example, in my place in Gießen, and we were talking about what happens next. And one of the things that will happen next is the election to the European Parliament. So next challenges are exactly the European parliamentary elections in June, from 6th to 9th of June. I don't know who can vote in this room. Some are not Europeans, but most of you will have the right to vote on the 6th or 9th of June. In Germany, it's the 9th of June on Sunday. And people don't know about it. So for most Germans, this is just a secondary event. They will go to federal elections, they will go to local elections, sometimes to regional elections, but not to European elections. So the participation rate in Germany is quite high. In European average, it's about 60% or something, but it's not enough. AfD will mobilize for this election. They will bring everybody who is in favor of AfD to the election, but for the rest of the public, it's not certain that they will come. So here comes the activist, whoever knows somebody who doesn't know about the European election and doesn't know how to vote, find out if he's pro-AfD and tell him, there is a football game, you should go there. But if not, you would tell him, well, go to the election, it's important. Because you have like 40% non-voters, and maybe 10% can be mobilized for the AfD, but the rest can be mobilized for center and left-wing parties. And this is exactly what it's about. So mobilizing so-called non-voters, there are several reasons why there are people who never vote. You cannot convince them to go this time because they don't vote for federal elections or whatever. But there are people who say, well, it's not important, and you tell them it's important. There are people who say, no, I have to protest against the government, and I do this by non-voting, and this is stupid. You can explain that this is stupid. So there are a couple of reasons. In scientific research, we have like a list of reasons why people don't go voting, but here we can demonstrate how important it might be. And the other thing is, and this is more controversial in the public debate, that we have, as I say here, this saves the conservatives. There is this Polish experience, how you can mobilize a coalition against a right-wing party, the PiS. And this happened, and it was successful. And this is exactly a model for what I'm talking about. There can be formed a progressive alliance against AfD. This is a classical anti-fascist alliance. We are the good ones, and they are the bad ones. And we're fighting for social justice, for ecological reform, etc. We are the progressives, and we don't have any contact with conservatives. Wrong. These conservatives, like the Christian Democratic Union in Germany, have to be included into this alliance and fully included and accepted. So this is important, and this is very controversial in Germany. Whenever you show up on a discussion, some people say, no, anti-fascism cannot go with the CDU, because they sometimes imitate fascist rhetorics, etc. No, they have to be included. This is what I think we'll talk about. And I will now tell you about the German exception. The German exceptionalism consists of the successful founding of two parties. One is in 1945, is the Christian Democratic Union, and the other one is the Green Party in the 80s, early 80s. This is very unusual because for two reasons. The Christian Democrats took a strong distance to National Socialism and to that kind of conservatism that kind of surrendered to the Nazis in the late 20s and early 30s. And there was a new beginning for conservatives in Germany, distancing themselves from the far right. We are not Nazis, we have get rid of them. There were contacts, there were people in the CDU which were, of course, members of the NSDAP, so sure, but never, it was a conservative turn against right-wing past in Germany. There were some connections, I know. Konrad Adenauer was a very, very, very conservative chancellor, but he brought this party and the Federal Republic of Germany to the West. Germany was always undecided. Are we part of the West or the East, or we somebody in the center, Mitteleuropa? No, he said we are part of the Western ideas, Western norms, Western alliances, Western politics. And that was the important thing about founding a party which was the most successful party in the history of Germany since 1945. They had a kind of a structural majority, so no government without the CDU, with some exceptions, of course. And the other changing aspect in German history was, of course, the founding of the Green Party, which is the most powerful and effective Green Party in Europe. Of course, there are Green parties in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in almost all countries, but not in that force that they gained in Germany. And so there is this issue of socio-ecological transformation brought into the center of the party system. It's not longer a left-wing party, it's a center party. And I will refer to that in a moment. And so we have in Germany strong parties of the center, two of them, the Greens and the CDU. We have a structural majority of the Christian Democrats. We had that, and we can recenter this. We had a recentering of the center by the Green parties, because many ideas of the Green parties influenced not just the Social Democrats, but also Christian Democrats. And this was happened in some states. Federal Länder in Germany is exactly a black-green coalition, as we call it, Schwarz-Grün. So this is the situation. And how did we get to that? And here comes a bit the theoretical part. I'm referring to a theory which is almost sold out in political science, but I like it very much. It's the so-called cleavage theory. And two researchers, Stein Rokkan, a Norwegian colleague, and Seymour Martin Lipton, a famous American political scientist, it developed this model. It looks complicated, it's very simple. It follows the history from the 17th century through our days, with the formation of a nation state and the development of the capitalist economy. It shows you two dimensions. It shows you two major dimensions. This is a territorial and a functional dimension here. So you see on the right hand, the functional dimensions, it's economy and culture, and you see the first cleavage, which is between center and periphery. This has been developed in many more research about, for example, the world system, where you also have center, semi-periphery, and periphery. So it tells us the history of the formation of the nation state, where you have a strong center, where you have a periphery, and where you have ethnic minorities and majorities, where you have religious foundation of a nation, and you have the secular foundation. And this is the first steps to establish a nation state in the 17th and 18th century. You have this separation between the church and the state, and you have a national identity, including the periphery and the ethnic minorities. This is the formation of the nation state. And there you have still some tensions between the two poles. Center and periphery is very important for the AfD because they pretend to represent the hinterland, the provinces, against the center, against the globalists, against the elites, against the establishment. So it's still there. And on the other hand, you have right-wing influences, very much influenced, right-wing tendency very much influenced by religious inspirations. Take the Republicans in the United States. Their base is the evangelical communities. About 90% are in favor of Donald Trump. So there is this religious, racist cleavage is still there. It's still active. It's not gone. It's not history. And it kind of, it's revitalized in these days. I'm very quick here because I'm running out of time. Here's the next one, which is our particular cleavage. And this is goes together with the formation of the capitalist economy. You have the left-right cleavage, and you have also in the modern version the tension between market-oriented liberalism and state-oriented progressivism. So this is the history of this part, and this created like the usual right-wing, right-left cleavage. Where are you? This is the how voters in Germany locate themselves in the continuum from the left to the right. And you see, we are very center-driven. Most Germans, and you see East Germany and West Germany, it's almost the same. You see that most people locate themselves at the center, a bit to the left. Yeah. You see, this is very much on the left side. We have almost no communists in Germany left. And there's the social democracy. Then you have the center left, the center right, and you have the right wing. And so most people in Germany locate themselves here in the middle. You know the difference between a camel and a dromedar? A dromedar has two. No, a dromedar, no. Camels have two and dromedars have one. So we are dromedars. Germans are dromedars. So we continue the discussion from yesterday. We are dromedars, but there are other nations where you have this the camel situation. For example, in France, you had like 4 bumps. Yeah, there were the communists and the socialists, on the right and the Gaullists and other conservatives. But everything is driven in Europe to the center, and this is a very representative model for how to locate yourself. You can locate yourself wherever you want. Not here, please. And this is the main point of my presentation, and I would like to convince you that we have a kind of skip to the right, but also a complete new situation in terms of the cleavages. So we have this, as you see on this, it's in German, but it's easy to translate. You have the left-right continuum with the parties, the Green Party, the SPD, the Linke, and you have the parties of the moderate right and the extreme right. So this is left-right. But there are 2 new cleavages coming up since 30 years or so, which is the cleavage between libertarianism and authoritarianism. This is not the same as left-right. Yeah, it kind of turns around. It turns to the right, everything to the right, and you have the market and state, still the market and state cleavage, which is still there. So it's socio-economical and socio-cultural cleavages, which are kind of new, and which skip the whole thing to the right. Here's again the same. You have the libertarian cosmopolitanism and the authoritarian communitarism. I'm not against communitarism, but this authoritarian version. And you have this ecological transformation against the fossil industrialism or productivism of former times. So these are, in my view, the 2 main cleavages for today. And that's exactly why you have AfD, because they serve against the ecological transformation. when we think about them in, let's say, in 30 years or so, we will think about them as those who hindered us to start the ecological transformation. That's their main reason for existence. Because they are strictly climate skeptics. They are against all kind of energy politics, which is in the sense of the transformation, etc. But they are also against this kind of globalism or cosmopolitanism, which kind of opens nation states to the rest of the world for supranational, transnational Vergesellschaftung. So this is the tendency we experience. It turns to the right, and you can reproduce this in the European Parliament. So here you see the dark countries where you have the most influential right-wing parties. And this is the most recent trend. You see that some parties, like the PiS in Poland or the Fidesz in Hungary, are on a certain retreat, are still strong, but are on a certain retreat, and they might lose at the European elections. But then you have the Austrian and the French and the German right-wing radicals who kind of gain support. You can see this if you compare the two columns. This is the results from 2019, and this is the actual polls. And here's exactly the danger that might happen in June, that this parliament is turning to the right. It's a bit complicated to see, I know. These are all European parliaments from 1979 through these days. This is the situation, today's situation. You see, there is a shrinking of the left, progressive side, communists, social democrats, the left green in retreat. You have a center where you can locate the European People's Party, and you have the transformation of the conservatives that were dominated by Tories and others, and French Gaullists, into a right-wing section here based on two fractions, the identitarian fraction and the European conservatives and reformists, as they call themselves. So what might happen is exactly that this tendency, the left-right dualism shrinking, the left-right imbalance in favor of the right, and then the shrinking of the moderate right in favor of the extreme right. This is the long-term process from 1979 through these days. I can show you this for the discussion. This is the current distribution of seats in the European Parliament. So see, it's quite okay. You have a center left, you have a center right, you have the socialists and Democrats on the left hand, you have the Greens, you have the liberals in yellow, you have Christian Democrats. But here you have the two fractions, European conservatives and reformists, and the identity fraction, which is gaining terrain. This is the current polls, and you see that these right-wing fractions will gain, even if PiS, for example, is shrinking. And you see also the identitarians, where the German AfD is now located. The other are on their way down, particularly the Green Party. So the current polls for European election in Germany show just 10% for the Green Party. This is below their national average and below their results from the last election, in federal election. So this is the situation. Here you see the two fractions. You have the ECR, the European Conservatives, and they were dominated by the Tories. They had to leave, as you know, by their own decision. Stupid. You have the PiS, you have the Fratelli d'Italia, which are the most important force in this. You have Vox from Spain and the Sweden Democrats. This is the conservative coalition. And most of these parties govern or are participating in governments and dominate the former conservative forces. This is exactly what not happened in Germany, but happened in Sweden, but happened in Italy. Look at the fate of Forza Italia or Democrazia Cristiana. They're all shrinking in favor of these right-wing, and Lega Nord. Lega Nord is here on the other, of the identitarian fraction. You have there the AfD, you have the Front National or Rassemblement National at this moment from Marine Le Pen, And you have the Lega, and you have the Austrian right wing, which has now 30% in the polls and seems to has the pretension to be the next chancellorship in Austria. And you have the Vlaams Belang, which is a Flemish party, which is also very strong. So this is the situation, and both parties may win in the European elections if ever the electorate of the moderate right and moderate left is not mobilized. This is the situation. So talk to everybody. Here we are. This might be the result. I will show you the Spitzenkandidat in Germany, which is incredible. If you look at this guy, look at him. It's absolutely incredible. This is the major competitor for European elections, well, the AfD. And here are some quotes. I'll leave you with that. This is a toxic male. If ever I didn't know what it is, this is one. And he's for the Dexit. He doesn't say we will leave the EU, but we will transform it completely into a loose confederation of nation states. That's his vision, like Hungary's plans are, or the PIS plans were. So here you have this Spitzenkandidat. He's an absolutely ridiculous person. It's absolutely incredible what kind of people gained like 22% in the polls. Yeah, but it's him. And in Thuringia and in Saxonia, it's even 40%. There's another one, I think he's quoted there, Björn Höcke, who is an absolute pure fascist. You can call him a Nazi and you're not perpetrated. There is one sign of hope. This was a couple of days ago, on 20th February. Alice Weidel, after this disaster, this communication disaster with this corrective thing in Potsdam, she went to Paris to talk to, you see on the left, Marine Le Pen, the leader of the European right at this moment. She tried to convince her it was all a manipulation by the left-wing press and it didn't happen. No, and let's be on the same side. Because they're sharing a fraction in the European Parliament. And Marine Le Pen left first and Alice Weidel left second. There was no photo from Marine Le Pen with Alice Weidel. She denied to have a common photo with this person because she says, this is a fascist. Not me, it's her. So this is a sign of hope. There is this constant battle. You know, there is an international of nationalists, but sometimes nationalists struggle with each other. So let's hope that this can go on. So the question is, of course, what to tell people who ask you, why should I vote? What kind of Europe? Most people on the left side, progressive side, are critics or skeptics regarding the EU. It's a neoliberal thing. It's a bureaucratic monster. Some of it is all true. There is a kernel of truth in all of these critiques. But look at what happened. We had a supranational consolidation. There is a strong pandemic response. There were these funds of recovery and reconstruction. There is this initiative for a Green New Deal. And of course, we will talk about security and defense in Europe after the menace by Russia and maybe the retreat of the Americans, whoever will win in Washington next November. So this is the way we can go, and it's about democracy, it's about freedom, it's about everything in this moment. Whereas if the other part wins, we go back to conspirationism, like with the Querdenker in Germany. We have a strong deindustrialization because without the recovery funds, without reconstruction, without the new green, European industries will shrink. You have this 3 to 4 degree world. If you start to construct this Green New Deal, and you have simple, blunt collaboration with Russia, because all these right-wing fractions are in contact with Putin or Putin's poodle. So, thank you very much.